Roll call.
Oh, like
You
Tina
say your
Epcot
name.
Thomas.
Ms. Thompson. Mark Evans.
Ashley Hiller, Adrian McGinnis.
Okay, and where do we have a flag?
Right behind the door.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, district update, Dr. Roberts.
So included in your packets are, you need to get, we have an extra packet, Susan, of the minutes. We've got this. I was just looking to make sure. We've got the new hires, which all of these were in preparation for the start of school. So the only one that, well, none of these have happened since school started. So some of these should have been on the last board minutes, and we kind of talked about that, a few of them at the top. But these are all replacements. There's only one addition to our staff that is a new position. And we have now brought on board our occupational therapist. We did outsource that service, but we have brought her on, and we're thrilled to have her. Emily's a great contribution to elementary campus. And so the only service we provide outside in a vendor situation is our PT, physical therapist, and we don't have that. So we contract that service out, but we do our in-house OT now and speech. The enrollment report, which you have a new one. And so this is a new program that we're using. So the current numbers are at the bottom. So if you add the 514 and the 446 together, that is our current enrollment as of today. And we are above our enrollment last year, so we continue to move forward. I will say that we have about 5 students, homeschool students, that are interested in coming in, which is a great addition. So we're navigating what that looks like. We originally set a price of 1/8 the student ADM, but we were advised by APSRC that should be 1/6. So we've had to raise the rate. So it's now $1,112 per course for the entire year. And so we'll work with homeschool families. So the vouchers, how that works is the vouchers get loaded into the family's accounts per quarter. And so we'll bill them or invoice them per quarter. So they draw out that money once it's loaded in. We invoice them, they pay us, then they get reimbursed through their class wallet account. So we're navigating new space with the homeschool families, but we're excited. As we knew what would happen, they're interested in our arts programs. And so we're navigating, do we have space available? So right now it's not pushing in and overcrowding, it's evaluating what spaces are available within our arts programs on both campuses, and then do we have the capacity? Love that. So, and then we go into financial. So that is the current district update. I will say that our pre-K starts tomorrow. We're very excited to welcome them. Ms. Donaghy's been a terrific planner and organizer, and she's really ready. And this week that we've had before pre-K start, she's been a real asset to our new kindergarten teachers, kind of helping train them. But the space is ready. We've gotten everyone through the fingerprint process, which is a little bit different because it's early childhood. We've gotten our official facility number, so we are ready to go. The process for drop off has been, we walked through that process for pickup. We're walking through that. So we know we'll have undulations along the way, but we're really excited to learn as we go with that space. Other district updates. You're going to hear some great presentations today on our Atlas data and just kind of how elementary is addressing some of their challenges or some of their goals identified by Atlas. And then we've had a successful start of school. Kids came. We're glad they came. They showed up. We're tracking, who's in attendance. Transportation is going smoothly. We've got a long wait list of kids still wanting a bus seat. We are at capacity with our buses, so we're navigating who's actually showing up and claiming that seat. And if they're not showing up 2 days in a row without an excuse, we're eliminating that seat and we're rolling someone else in, kind of a lottery system. And we still have the same pickup locations. Jamie Dale has been an extraordinary assistant navigating the tech part of that and making sure we have communication out for our bus riders. Pickup has been as smooth as possible here. As you see when you came in the detour, thankfully Rogers Police Department was here for about the first 4 days, helping navigate sort of the turn and all of that. They passed on their duties now to us as a school to manage. And but as you also maybe can see, we're making slight progress out front. So our hope is that we're going to be able to reach maybe September and not push it out into October for that release. But that is all I have for district update.
Schedule changes were awesome this year, much smoother. So everybody killed it on that. I can tell the difference as a parent.
The high school administrators worked so hard to get that organized and really developed a system we have not used before with coming in through the pack and coming in this way. The approach also allowed our child nutrition to set up, and we've gotten the most applications filled out in a short period of time than we ever have. So already with what we've got filled out, we are at Title I status on both schools. So that will be a great advantage because we will be a Title I district at that point. So we still have more to collect, but that was a really great move to how it was organized. So the schedules and the process on how changing their schedules is again owed to the administrative team here and navigating not only wants, but prioritizing needs versus wants. And they're also kind of finalizing concurrent credit and getting that ready and lined out to start. So that's a tribute to Ms. Price and her hard work and dedication to get the most number of kids enrolling concurrent that we've ever had before. And that's a huge kudos to her. So very, very successful start to school.
Awesome.
Yes.
Any questions, anyone? For Dr. Roberts? Do we have any comments from the public? We need to approve last month's minutes. Does anybody have any question about those minutes? Is it a motion?
So moved. Okay. Let me go, Tina, my book. We'll get you a copy so you can try it along.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So it just goes there. Oh.
New business, introduction to the ARC program.
I am really thrilled to talk about this. Previously, I had mentioned that we were trying to find a way to deal with our students that had super high needs and how do we manage their, thank you, Michael, how do we manage their needs amidst all the other behavioral needs that we have? How do we identify the highest need kids and how do we still serve them in a way that's sustainable, but also how do we separate the low level tiers into discipline consequences? And so part of that is us being a part of this national board of practitioners. So if you remember, Arkansas Arts Academy was invited to be one of 7 schools across the nation as a national board of practitioners school on how we're looking at trauma-informed care. And the work that's happening in that space is fantastic. So what we're bringing to the table as a best practice for us in the state of Arkansas is this art community. And the key to that is using the arts to re-engage students and using that sort of approach to focus trauma or frustration or stress or anxiety through the tool of arts as a sustainable skill that could last a lifetime. So we're trying to reprogram kids to rethink how to outwardly project their frustrations or their trauma into a tangible product versus into something that could cause physical harm or self-harm or things like that. So in this process of developing this art, it's really looking at our community partners and who we're working with right now and establishing this safety net. And so currently right now we've got the Children and Family Advocacy Center. And they have come to us all last year and really they came in a moment's notice and provided trauma-informed care to our staff when we had high need on a moment's notice. They helped us pull together a parent forum of investigators, deputies, all of their staff in really addressing parent concerns. They've worked in counseling services here. They've come on campus and worked on counseling, meeting individual kids. They've done small group work. They've given us resources for small group work. I could go on and on. They're an extraordinary organization that all of that is provided to us free. They are in space right now where there's in jeopardy of Medicaid funding cuts and some of the services might be in jeopardy, but we're also helping advocate for them about all the things that they do. So we've got the Children and Family Advocacy Center. We've got Arkansas Crisis Center. And what they do is they deal with suicide ideations, anything that's having to do with guiding students, managing student crises through a 988 text that's a two-way text for kids that span all the time. You can interrupt me.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had a question.
No.
I'm sorry. It's a very emotional topic for me. The 988, I know the funding was cut. So does that still, like nationally, so does that still work locally?
So as far as I know, they still have the resource to man that. I don't know.
My
that
understanding
anything
is
has
that here
changed.
in Arkansas, it's
Yeah.
still, I
So-
mean, and that has just been
Yeah.
in another presentation I was in a couple of weeks ago, that it is still manned 24/7
Okay.
here in Arkansas.
Yeah. So they came out and they have done staff training. So they are part of this ARC.
Okay.
And then I found an art therapist that's amazing in Bentonville that not only is trained and licensed in art therapy, but she can also manage interns. And she's also trained in play therapy and there's another therapy that has to do with more like physical movement. And it's not play, but anyway, these individuals are beginning the establishment of our net, of our ARC. And they already have organizations they want to come in. And so we'll eventually build up a huge circle of community partners. So when students get to that escalation point of the highest trauma needs that we know as school employees, school personnel that have been trained in education processes, that we need to reach out to professionals to help families navigate that space. Our ARC will come together and provide information and resources to this family. So that is something that doesn't necessarily exist anyplace else, that we've got an internal capacity to offer families immediate guidance or recommendations or contact information. So we wouldn't be doing that. There's no breach in confidentiality. We're just gathering people together to develop a bank of sources and places that these families can go to attempt to curb or break generational trauma or childhood trauma or family trauma or whatever. So we're just starting this work now. So we have a meeting coming up that it also includes the principals and the counselors. So we're all developing processes so when kids get to that spot, we know how to bring together the community, talk through the situations, give advice on who to contact. Give advice on who to contact and set the family out on a path. And that's what we're going to be sharing as best practices in this national group. In addition, part of the work with the national organization is how do we look at the kids in high needs and try to have that Medicaid build. So eventually we can determine a need if we can have a full-time school psychologist, a full-time social worker. And if we have enough students in need, that would be a Medicaid funded position. So that's kind of what all that work is, but I'm super excited that we're going down that path and that we're providing relief to teachers. It's a lot of teachers' responsibility to deal with that high trauma needs. We don't have that capacity, but we also don't just want to push them out the door and say you need to go to residential treatment without having any sort of responsibility for their education, responsibility for their wellness.
I like that the word community is in this, plan title.
Yeah. Do you, you said it's kind of in the early phases, but what's the rollout look like to families so they're aware and students are aware?
So how it will work, although we've got a lot of like detailed processes to put in place, how it will work is when a kid is identified as that top tier behavior, that's probably 5% of our student body, very a small handful of kids. The teachers will have already referred that student to through the process. Already collecting documentation. Parents have probably already been involved in conversations. Behavior plans have been set. And when none of that is working and that kid is up at the toppest level, then what we're going to do is invite the ARC together with the parents, with whatever instructional staff wants to be there, and really talk about resources. And not necessarily what our consequences are, because we're above that now. None of that has worked. So what resources are available in the community that not only is for the student, because they're a minor and they're elementary student, a lot of their onus is on their parents. Parents have to get them to school. Parents have to provide for them. And if none of those things are being met, what does our community do to support that?
When they reach that tier as an admin, it was okay, we're gonna pull the work in,
Yep.
we're gonna make those recommendations.
Yep.
So a teacher isn't necessarily, okay, this happens at the admin level.
Yep.
After we went through
Yeah.
our
We
additional
go through
step.
the process, but in the past, we have been at a stalemate up there. Like we haven't known what to do. And that kid sits up at the top and is still being in our system, and it's never successful that way. Teachers are burnt out, admin is chasing a solution. And we have to have parent support for anything to happen. But oftentimes when parents aren't supported, they don't know what to do, or they don't know how to get there, or they have a lot of excuses for whatever reason, good, bad, or indifferent. And right now, what we want to give them is a lot of resources that they can obtain that will help them. And if we become the wrong place for that child because of the intense need, then we want to feel good about our processes in that child's next steps. Susan, can you hear us? I brought the mic. Can you hear us? Rachel, can you hear us?
I'm telling you, no, I
I can hear you.
Barely.
and I know that people are watching on YouTube, but there are people watching because I'm going to can't hear y'all. So.
People use the mic now.
I mean, we may just set a couple here and there.
Yeah, I don't know that we have. Yeah.
Give it
Okay.
to Marty.
Okay. Next item is employee handbook for approval. The handbook was distributed to us, the red lines were there, all the changes that were made. If anybody have any questions about any of those red line changes?
This is about the deadline, for the budget. It specifically pulls up July. And this year, we voted in July to put the budget off for one more month so that we could get more information on the federal funding that may be coming or not coming. I mean, how do you feel about that, calling out July? And then is it okay in July when it's kind of set on the schedule? Is it okay for us to put it off for a specific reason if we vote on that? Or do we need to just say, you know, by September 30th, which is the state deadline? Thank you for breaking that up. I do believe that what we can do for this year is say August 2025 for this year. It is required by state law that we have it ready August 1 at the end of our fiscal year. But we did delay a vote on, but we can put in there, budget was available. The employee handbook gets updated every year. And we'll just put the budget was available and approved at this meeting. And the handbook will be approved, and that's kind of the footnotes of when the handbook was approved. So we'll easily address that. The other changes were just process oriented, and their works changes were made probably mid-year based on some things that you guys suggested about technology and technology access and all of those things. So really the only significant changes were just on some processes. I move that we approve the employee handbook changes that are outlined in red.
A second.
All approved?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, do we need to vote on that budget then?
It's a
That makes sense. Okay, next item is student handbook for approval. Dr. Roberts answered my questions about that. Does anybody else have any? Does Dr. Roberts want to explain what changed?
Not really a question, more so a comment. I would be really interested to see at some point in the year, after first semester, maybe towards the end of the year, how do students feel? Do they feel protected by this policy? And do they feel safe? Like, it's all well and good to say we have a policy, which is of course necessary. But
Wait, did you ask that in your last set of questions when we talked to parents and students?
it is on the student handbook, whether or not the students feel safe and protected by our policies and procedures.
Oh, I think we had a survey.
We did? Okay, sorry about that.
I think so. I think we had a survey.
So to address that, that's a very good question. We'll do it again.
So we need to keep doing it.
We, at the end of, well, in May, we sent out a survey to parents, students, staff, and we asked them a lot of different questions. And some of that survey we got directly from,
Yes, it was a combination. Some was Department of Ed, some was the co-op, some was horizontal, like I pulled some good questions.
so Jamie did a real comprehensive survey that she sent out. And what we looked at that, and again, she put together a terrific analysis, which we can give you a copy of that, anybody that's interested from that. And that really helped us identify if they felt safe on campus, if they felt safe in their classrooms, within their school community, with their teachers. And that gave us a real launch point for identifying some things we wanted to address. And so that was kind of what I ended the staff year with, is prioritizing the needs from that survey. And then we readdressed the staff when we started this year about how we're moving forward from that. And that's how we've identified some of our priority areas. Behavior was one of them. Both students needed consistency and teachers needed support. So that's kind of one of the reasons the ARC came about too, was to provide that level. Rachel's staff in elementary has gone through BISC training, and that is like a PBIS, positive support, positive reinforcement training. The elementary has gone through BX3,
The high school and high.
Both, they both have. So we've done some internal training of staff on how to manage those teenagers and what to do in their classroom. And then, so we're addressing that. That's a long story, but we will continue to survey because that's an important part.
It's interesting to see, and
One thing that we kind of all pointed out, and I think even the administration noticed before they even presented to us, was there's some opportunity for like maybe some open-ended questions. Because there are some questions where we had responses like, do you feel like other students are disruptive in your, like, is it hard for you to learn, maybe something like that, because of disruptions from other students? And they said yes. Well, then we need to ask them like what would be helpful or what's most disruptive. So I think we found where we could put in some open-ended questions, and I think the plan is to continue those surveys, correct?
earlier next year so that we can.
And then I think you mentioned about staff too. I'm curious to know how, if the staff feels the policies and procedures are enforceable. Like if it's something that like, yes, I feel like I've got tools I need, not just necessarily in training, but even the rules are clear enough that I know how to like, because sometimes with bullying, right, it's really difficult because it could be he said, she said, he said, whatever. And it can be hard to protect kids in that situation. So ultimately, just trying to like ask the questions to make sure that obviously students are safe, but that they feel safe, and then if there's some stuff that's falling through the cracks, we can help identify it. So,
That's great. We will continue to push that out. Thank you for bringing that up. It's a great point.
I think it would be good for you to review what they had and like make suggestions
Yeah, I'd
on
love that.
questions and stuff. That would be, I mean, because you're making some excellent points. I
Did you
just
see
don't
the question?
remember what those
Yeah, I will
were.
get Tina and Chris a copy of that survey.
that'd be great.
Any other questions about the student handbook? Can I get a motion to approve it?
Motion to approve student handbook for 25-26.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, before we move to Atlas, Susan, can you poll the board about potentially changing the time of the board meeting so that we can put it on the agenda and vote on it on the next board meeting? I think we need Emily's opinion too. I think everybody should weigh in. I think reach out to me and maybe Adrian, and we'll talk about time slots. And then can you poll us all, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, so we have one open board seat. We have one candidate interested in that board seat that you all have had her contact information. We need to fill that board seat and complete the interview process. So if anybody has any concerns or hasn't had a chance to interview that candidate, please do so. I would like us to fill that position and vote that person on. So we need to do that pretty quickly. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions about us filling that seat?
Do you want us to send you notes? Okay.
Okay. Atlas is next.
So this is our second year of Atlas, which is a new testing platform put out by Arkansas. We've learned a lot, all of us, the whole state, including the Department of Education, about Atlas. We're getting a lot more reports in, and now we can kind of compare the growth of our data. We tried to compare it last year. It did the best as we could, but it was apples to oranges. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview. Feel free to ask any questions, interrupt me if you have a question come up, and it won't bother me at all. So if you're not familiar with testing in Arkansas, Atlas is Arkansas's testing baby. They created it from the ground up. They're very proud of it. We're still making corrections, but at least it doesn't feel like we're building the plane as we're flying it. I think it's mostly built. give or take a week. Atlas is Arkansas Teaching, Learning, and Assessment System. It embraces, when we talk about Atlas, we're mostly referring to the 310 summative exams, but it's more than that. There's a K3 element. That's kind of the wing that's still in process. I don't have any data for you on that yet because it hasn't been released by the state. The reason is it was not in good shape last year. They had to revamp it last year, so they're still processing that data for everybody. I'm going to show you the data for the 310 general. We also do interims using the Atlas assessment, and I believe that that has benefited us. We're not required to do Atlas interims, but I think it's valuable for the students that we test them throughout the year with the same type of questions, the same standard content as they're going to see in the summative at the end of the year. There is alternate assessments. We don't currently offer any of these. These are for students with the lowest cognitive functioning, and we don't have any students in our district that reach that level. Should we would offer these type of assessments, but they're assessments designed to allow that student to show their success in a different way. Atlas also has a branch of college and career testing, but these are not tests made by Arkansas. These are standardized national tests. ACT is one. You guys probably even took that when you're in school. It's still going on. ACT, PSAT is coming up for 10th graders. That is also put on by College Board, the same company that puts on our AP exams. And 11th graders can choose to take that if they want to. We offer the PSAT NMSQT, which is National Merit Qualifying Test. It's just a different version of the PSAT. And then ACT Work Keys, we offer this. Students are not required to take it, but we offer it in the fall. It allows them to earn certifications that then they can take into the workplace for things including math, reading readiness, but on a workplace level, and then just technical skills. They're pretty general. There's not a lot of prep for that. And then other tests under Atlas are NAEP. NAEP is National Assessment of the Education Program, I believe, offered to 8th graders, 4th and 8th graders. And then you were chosen, it's not really something you want to be chosen for, but you are chosen if your school participates in NAEP. And we did 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. But this is where the federal government assesses all 4th and 8th graders to see how we're doing at a national level. Alpha 21 is for our English language learners, and then the civics exam is a required test. It's the same test that you must take if you are wanting to become a citizen of the U.S. and we're not born here. It is required for graduation. So here's our testing dates. I won't go through all of them with you, but they're posted on the public calendar. We've spread them out as much as possible, given the timeframes that the tests have to be taken in. K3 screeners are the first up to bat. We're going to be taking those screeners and hopefully getting those results even before we get our summative results. And then we have fall interims. PSAT, like I said, is in October. I'm going to do the ACT work keys in November, offer it then. Interims happen again in the spring. We used to call those fall and winter, which was really weird, but I'm glad we're calling them fall and spring now. A new test that the state is requiring us to offer that we don't put on is the ASVAB test. Now, the military comes in and does this. This is going to be optional for students in 10th through 12th grade, but it's like a career survey type test, pretty in-depth. Then ELPA happens in March as well as the ACT, and then Atlas summatives and AP testing happen in April and May, right on top of each other, but there's not much we can do about it. So the 310 summative data, what I'm going to show you today, this data, in addition to being a measurement of kids' performance level, it allows us as a school to do a lot of things with this data. We get to do a systems check, and we're seeing some of our systems need a little bit of revving up. But it allows us to look at some curriculum gaps, if there's curriculum gaps, there may not be. But if you have a certain level of scores, that it might indicate, hey, there's a bigger issue than just 1 or 2 kids not doing well. It can help inform teacher placement for the future years, the upcoming year. We can look at things in a cohort view, meaning the same group of kids that are moving up in each grade. Like last year's 8th graders are now the 9th graders. We can look at that group of kids and how they're doing. Or we can look at longitudinally and look at how fourth grade, for instance, has done over the years. So there's different ways to examine it. Initially, it allows teachers to just look at where students are and to be able to dig deeper, and it gives us lots of information about student lists. So the Atlas has 4 tests. 2 of them fall under ELA. To get an ELA score, students have to do a writing test, and they have to do a reading, which we really call English, because there's also some grammar stuff in there. And this is whether you're in 3rd grade or 9th grade. ELA goes by grade level. So it doesn't really matter what class the student is in. If they're in an AP class, for instance, they're going to take the Atlas ELA for their grade level. And there's some information about what is tested on that. Math is only 1 test. Grades 3 through 8 take it by grade level, but then after you get out of 8th grade, then it's an end of course exam. So it depends, are you in algebra or are you in geometry? If you're an 8th grader in geometry, you're going to take geometry end of course, not your 8th grade math test. So this one kind of goes by grades, kind of not. That's what they're tested on in algebra and geometry. And then science is a little bit like math. 3 through 8 test you by grade, and then there is no 9th grade, there is no physical science test. It just jumps to 10th grade biology. But it's biology's an end of course exam. I don't make your rules. Hey, the teaching really like it too. You like to be in 9th grade when it comes to science day. But biology is end of course, so it's not just 10th graders, it's anyone in biology. And here is how Atlas is graded. It doesn't matter which test, you always get a 1 to 4 scale, which is similar to Aspire, but they've changed it just a little bit. We'll go with the easiest first. Level 4 is your students that are above grade level. They are consistently demonstrating an advanced learning. They probably need enrichment and acceleration in their class. Then I'm going to jump down to level 1. Level 1 is the opposite. These are our students who are demonstrating a limited understanding. If you have a student with a level 1 score, they need some intensive, probably tier 2 or tier 3 intervention because they're behind for all intents and purposes. Levels 2 and 3 is where it gets a little bit murky. Level 3 is considered proficient. This is our target for everybody. We want them to have a proficient understanding of grade level skills. Now, level 2, they're close to proficient. I'm not as concerned about a level 2 as I am a level 1. Though if I get a level 2 kid in my class, they're probably going to need some tier 1 intervention, just a little bit of scaffolding to help them be on that grade level. So I wouldn't necessarily say they're behind. It's more like they're inconsistent. They can do some things grade level really well. Some things they might have weaker skills on. So it might be they struggle with the high level stuff, or maybe it's just a certain standard that they're struggling with, kind of thing. Okay, so that's the basis, because you're going to see everything else looking at these 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's our district comparison for 2025 to 2024. We slipped just a little bit. In some areas, you'll notice that our level 1s grew about 3%. But our level 4s also grew 1%. Our level 3s dropped just a little bit. While these are our scores and this is what we own, this is also consistent with what I'm seeing with other schools. When I was looking at the Big Four and looking at other charter schools in this area, most schools did slip a little bit, some slipped a lot. So I wouldn't say that we are in a bad place necessarily. And it's very new testing. But overall, we have 53% of our students are proficient. Your level 3s and level 4s are your proficiency, which is just a little bit lower than the year before. And then it breaks down by grade level. I'm not going to read all of these to you, but you can see that some grade levels have higher level 1s. Rule of thumb kind of is if you have more than 20% of students level 1, that is one of those red flags for that systems check. If you've got 20% or more students there, then we need to look at the deeper issue. What's happening? What skills are being missed? Is this a trend that we're seeing with this group of students? Lots of different things to look at there. The high school tends to be a little bit higher in ELA, but overall, ELA is a strong suit in the elementary and the high school for the most part. And this data is based as of May 23rd, 2025, which was the last day of Atlas testing. Our Atlas changes every day. Every day that Ms. Lewis enrolls or unenrolls a student, their Atlas scores follow them. So if we have a high achieving student leave, then we're gonna drop scores. If we have a lower achieving student get enrolled, then we're gonna drop scores. So, or vice versa, sort of thing. So it changes every day. And I thought I had presented this a little bit different, but I want to stop for just a moment and recognize, Dr. Roberts and the principals wanted to recognize our high achieving teachers. Ms. Price, will you come up here for just a second? I thought I could do all of these before I got to grade level, and I didn't arrange it that way. So we have 2 English Language Arts Awards. One of them is for recognition of achieving the strongest Atlas summative scores overall for ELA in the district, and that is for Miss McHuman. She teaches 9th and 10th grade English. And we also have an ELA award for the highest percentage of district growth, proficiency growth. So it's great to have the highest scale score, but it's also fantastic to see how many kids that you've grown in proficiency, because every group of kids come in at a different level. And that was Cameron Suki, I'm sorry, 4th grade. Good job. And there are math scores. Math is our weakest area, and I'm not going to say a whole lot about it because Rachel's going to come up and talk about math, and I don't want to steal her thunder. But looking at our 2025 math score, we have 27% in the level 1. This math is a struggle across the whole state. We obviously don't want our scores to be there, but it's not just us. It's a lot. We do have 36% in level 2, which could mean that those kids might be more easily flipped into level 3, because they could be what we in education kind of call bubble kids. They're right on the edge. We have 14% of our students that are in level 4, which gives us a total of 37% that are proficient. And this is 3rd grade all the way through geometry. So it's all of our grade levels. These scores didn't change too much from the year before, but we did go up a little bit in that level 1 category. And looking at these by grade level is a little more telling. We have some opportunities for improvement at the elementary school. Geometry also doesn't look like it's super high because we have that 32% level 1, but our geometry in 2024 was worse than that. Mr. Free made a lot of growth over this last year, so that is a big tell. And then algebra is what we kind of consider the gateway to college, for lack of a better term. If you struggle in algebra, you're going to struggle the rest of high school in math in many cases. And our algebra scores are really great. Absolutely.
It seems like 5th grade is really a target spot where this keeps happening. You might like go down, look at even 3 years back. It seems like there's something about 5th grade, right? And then you're using this data to identify trends. You have maybe at the end we're going to say how to target those or attack those when you find the trends, right? I just wanted to ask you that. And then maybe if we know what's going on with a lot of things.
I'll let Rachel field with some of her ideas. The 5th grade has been a concern, and I know that last year they moved a lot of teachers around in an attempt to do that, in an attempt to improve those scores. But it's 5th grade, not just in math. So is there anything you want to share? Okay.
Sorry, I jumped ahead.
Did you have a question, Adrian? You just
So like 3rd to 4th is like major growth, and then losing it.
4th grade trends higher last year and this year in almost all your subjects. It could be that your 4th grade team is really strong. There's very strong teams. And there's lots of ways we look at this data. We're gonna dig into it really deep in PLCs at least 3 times this year. This is one of the goals Dr. Roberts has targeted me with, is to get in there and look at it even by the standard level. How did your students do on each of these standards, the ones that you taught last year, as well as the ones that are coming into you? How well do you think you taught that information versus how did the students perform, and lots of different ways we're gonna look at it.
How far are we out from COVID?
5
Some
years.
of these,
5
some
years.
of these
Math, I think, is still a result of COVID. That's
They're
my
like
personal opinion.
trying to do online math to begin with.
I think your COVID kids are now in 7th grade, 6th and 7th.
Sixth graders were out at the end of their first grade.
Yes and no. There's some residual effects of social interaction and engagement and attention that affects
Everything.
Okay, so I want to show the math awards. The strongest Atlas summative score overall for math in the district is for Miss Nikki Cole. And the highest percentage of district math proficiency growth among student cohorts is from Deb Arnold, who unfortunately isn't able to be with us because she's choosing to take a sabbatical and stay home with her baby. I guess you can do that. But she was our 8th grade math teacher, as well as some, the 7th and 8th grade math teacher last year. And finally, science. Science is another strong suit. I would say that science might be a little stronger than ELA, but they do have a few less standards than ELA. But science and English are both strong suits for the district overall. So we're still seeing the same trend that we went up a little bit in that level 1 and down a little bit in that level 4. But overall, we've held steady. If you look at our level 2 and level 3, they're still right at about the same. Our proficiency level is 54%, and this is grades 3 through 8 plus biology, which is mostly 10th grade. And then breaking it down by grade level, science looks better across grade level. That 5th grade, like you noticed, is a little bit higher across the board. Biology has so few level 1s that I couldn't even fit the data points in there. Only 5% of our students in biology were level 1. And you're always going to have some for a few reasons. Our 8th grade science only had 9% in level 1 proficiency. So our strongest Atlas summative scores for the district in science is Miss Jessica Wasserman. Environmental science, and the list goes on. And we had a tie for the highest science proficiency growth. We had a tie between Abby Tabor fifth grade science, right? Fourth grade. They were both fourth grade.
Strong.
And then high school grade science had 2 teachers last year. We had Mr. Stavartak, who taught the first half of the year, and then he took over our computer science program. And Miss Ashley Wellman, who is no longer with us for similar reasons, she decided to not drive from Eureka Springs every day. She took over the half of that year, and they had the second tied score for science growth. Take it, put it up.
Yeah. Yes. You'll come around board and they're gonna, in the middle of you, this is significant to all these teachers with some incredible work.
I would think y'all should be in the picture too.
I'll squeeze down here. Come over here. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, probably.
As soon as I got you here, I guess I could have gone around
It's
that
okay,
way.
you're good.
Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Congratulations. Great work.
They didn't know why they were coming. I just sent them an email and said, okay, here's my last thing. I wanted to show you how our Atlas scores compared to districts around us. And I just picked a sampling. There's lots of factors that go into student enrollment. So I've got the big four here, and you can look at our enrollment is just a fraction, in some cases, a 15th or 20th of their schools. But we outperformed some of them in ELA, math, and science. Our ELA scores were higher than Rogers, Fayetteville, and Springdale. And our math scores were higher than Springdale, and they're kind of on par with the others. And then our science scores were higher than Rogers, almost higher than Fayetteville, and was higher than Springdale. These last three columns over there are the district percentages of free and reduced lunch, district percentages of English language learners, and district percentages of special education. And you can see that our numbers in several of those categories are higher. For instance, we're over double what Bentonville is for free and reduced lunch. And we have a higher percentage of English language learners than Bentonville as well. And then our special education numbers are a little bit lower than the big four. I also included some public school districts or public schools, the big citywide districts that are closer to our size, Pea Ridge and Gravette. And we outperformed them both in English and in science. And then at the bottom are three charter schools. So Hobbs Hall took the cake for everybody in English, math, and science. And that's Hobbs Hall as a school district, not any one particular campus. But if you also look, their free and reduced lunch numbers, as well as their ELL and especially their special education, are minuscule compared to every other district. School of Advanced Studies did very well for their first year. They only had 87 students enrolled, but they performed very well on their Atlas test. Again, if you look at their contributing factors, free and reduced lunch, English language learners, and special education, they're very low in some of those categories, all of those categories. And then Arkansas Connections is statewide. They have many more students than we do. It's a different platform. I kind of hesitated whether I should bring them in or not, but we're performing higher than the Connections Academy.
Coming for you, Haas.
That's right.
Yeah.
Is there any questions I can answer for you? Okay. You're welcome.
Thanks, Jamie. This is great.
If you ever want more data information, I really love my job as a data nerd, so I always have a ton more than I put out here.
Jamie, do you have a breakdown of the high schools? The local high schools?
I can get you that. That's what easy.
So while Michael gets my presentation up, so this fourth grade, both of my high achievers here are fourth grade. We have a very strong fourth grade team, which you can see in the data, because we know that when the teachers are strong together, they really make a much larger change in the kids. And it's not just those two on their team. Their math teacher is very strong, and Miss Harding, who teaches social studies, but also writing and lots of literacy in there. They're all for an incredible team, which is what we're trying to do with the rest of the teams. It's what we're working towards. We have some other very strong teams in our lower grades, and we're working to kind of gel some of those personalities and teams in some of our upper grades. So I'm going to talk about math. So our math is low, and we know it's low. It has been low. And our focus at the elementary school for the last 3 years has been artful learning, and it has been working to incorporate all of our academic standards into this artful learning framework to teach our students. And we've focused a lot on writing units, on using arts-based skills and strategies, and our teachers have been through hundreds and hundreds of hours of training and preparation for the arts integration. And while we were doing that, when we're focusing on this, all of our teachers we're brand new teachers of artful learning. Even our experienced teachers, it's kind of like you're starting over a little bit with that aspect. So our focus was not on math as much as it should have been. And so this year we are implementing Artful Learning. We're a legacy school, but we are not receiving additional training from Artful Learning. So all of our training can focus now on, for our math teachers, all on math. So we are making sure that all of our students are receiving high quality and standards aligned math instruction. We are wanting to make sure that we have consistent support for teachers. And my background is in mathematics. When I was teaching 7th through 12th grade mathematics, my degree's in mathematics. And I've worked a lot with math teachers K-12. So I'm actually very excited to be able to talk math with my teachers consistently. Some of the things that we're going to do is we are focusing on math in our professional development, which we have already done. We spent 3 half days fully out of our beginning back to school professional development on just math. Like our math, everyone who taught any math was there. And we spent a lot of time looking at all of our standards and going through, looking at the Atlas data, which Jamie, she's incredible with the data that she presented us. We had standards level for every single grade. And we know this standard if we're above the state, below the state, if we're at proficiency below. So it was really helpful for our teachers to be able to dig into that data. We also this year will be I will be working to model and co-teach lessons with them on hands-on and effective instructional strategies. Some of the things that we're really focusing on even as a whole building is structured student talk routines. So it's ensuring that every student is talking in every class every day about what they're learning. So, sometimes when we're teaching and we're asking students, okay, who knows the answer to this? We raise a hand, it's the same couple of students every single time. So those kids are talking about what they're learning, but the entire rest of the class is not talking about it. And we know when we talk to someone else about what we're learning, we're teaching someone else, we're learning so much more deeply. So that's a big focus for math, but also the whole school. Also, I'll be conducting targeted walkthroughs, and it won't just be me. I want for our teachers to be walking through each other's classrooms so they can learn from each other. And we also will be doing using CFAs, that's common formative assessments. We'll be identifying the students that need that extra support. So let me show you a little. So that's really little, but I'll tell you what that is. So we have every standard K-6 for mathematics in one spreadsheet now. And every single one of them are highlighted, 3rd through 6th grade are highlighted based on our Atlas results. So if they have yellow, then that standard, we performed below the state in that standard. And if it's green, we were above the state. And then if it's bolded, it's an essential standard. It's a standard that we've determined is one of those really big standards that a lot of other standards kind of nest under. It's a key standard for that grade. So we have gone through, the teachers are looking at that. And I've talked to them and I said every single one of them should be green. We should be above the state in every single category, in every single standard. And so this gives us a place to know where we were weak last year and where we need to focus. So some of the things that I'm going to focus on we're already focusing on it, with kindergarten through 2nd grade are talking about properties of mathematics because those go all the way through 12th grade. If you understand the associative property, the commutative property where you can flip numbers like 3 plus 2 is 2 plus 3. That's really helpful when you're doing x plus y and y plus x and knowing that those are the same thing. So that should start in kindergarten and we're going to make sure that that's strong. Subitizing and subitizing is like we can see a number. So I can see an arrangement of 4 things and I know that's a 4. I don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. There's some of that just understanding numbers. We also place value understanding is really important in kindergarten through 2nd grade to build a strong foundation, and then having computational fluency for our addition and subtraction. We are working on curriculum alignment vertically, so making sure that the things that we say are important in 2nd grade are important to the 3rd grade, are important to the 4th grade, and it builds on each other. And then also horizontally, making sure that if one of our 2nd grade teachers is focusing on this topic, that's the same thing in every classroom, because it should be the same across each classroom. We also are going to be working, I think I said this a little bit earlier, but on small group intervention planning and making sure that we're really targeting exactly what students need. So if a kid needs work on single digit addition and they're in 4th grade, well, then we want to get them in a group with other kids that need that support so that we can drill down and do that in a small group time, but not taking the entire class that may not need that same intervention. We don't want to take kids who need extension or that need to be on different things. We want to do that in a really small group targeted setting.
Rachel, have you guys also done training on things like screeners or looking for through children having issues in math as far as like dyslexia goes, trouble with their eyes? You know, you were talking about knowing 2 + 3 and 3 + 2 are the same thing. If their eyes are not developed properly in these grades, they're flipping numbers and you don't necessarily know it. So have our teachers
we haven't had targeted PD on that, but we do. Math is always a kind of the stepchild of research. It's always reading, and then they're like, oh yeah, we'll talk about math a little bit. So the research is behind quite a bit, but we do know that kids that are dyslexic, they often will have dyscalculia, and sometimes they have that without the dyslexia. So we know that, but we haven't gotten a lot of training on it, because honestly, I don't know what kind of training is out there except for a couple of books. But our teachers are definitely looking at, we notice like in 3rd grade when kids are trying to memorize their multiplication facts, there's some kids that cannot do it, no matter what kind of practice or routines they get in, they just cannot memorize those facts. So we have alternate strategies for them so that they can learn a different strategy instead, so that they won't be behind, even if they can't do the traditional strategy of just memorization. Our 3-5 focus is a little bit different, but properties of mathematics, that's incredibly important all the way through. And then their computational fluency moves up to multiplication and division. But if you don't have a strong addition and subtraction base, then multiplication division is incredibly difficult. And then algebraic reasoning, because we're setting that base for algebra, as Jamie said, is key for high school growth and for college. And then also geometry is one of our focuses. We had some strengths in data in 3rd through 5th grade. Our 3rd through 5th grade groups, they all consistently had really great strengths in data, like charts and mean, median, mode, and those types of things. Our action steps are very similar to what K2 is. We're going to be looking at targeted PD for the growth areas. We're going to make sure we're aligned, small group intervention, structured student talk routines, and language frames. Because even though our numbers for ELL students, our language learners may not be very high, every single one of our students is learning language, especially in the elementary level. They're all learning how to speak academically. They're all learning all these new words for all these standards all the time. So it's important to provide frames for them to be able to communicate what they know. And then again, model teaching, co-teaching, and we'll be doing some peer observation. Some of the other math resources that we have the Bailey Educational Group Math Coaching. Dr. Roberts wrote a grant for us. We received it last year. It's continuing through this year, where we have lots of days with a coach through the Bailey Education Group. And he is a former principal and teacher. And his name is Kelly Swoker. He's been coming in. He'll be with us for 22 days. So he'll be here 2 days a month. Plus he was here before school quite a bit with our teachers. They're going to be doing a comprehensive curriculum instructional review for the teachers. They're going to be looking at how the teachers are using their curriculum, how the teachers are teaching, and they're going to have a very specific set of recommendations and supports to put in, or supports to look at for each individualized teacher. And then those are our on-site coaching dates that he'll be here, but he and I will meet every single time that he's here. And then just in general, our whole school expectations are that we refine and improve our artful learning units, because our artful learning units are that framework that math fits in as well. It's our framework that we have, our standards. It's the way that we teach our standards. And so we want to make sure that that's as good as we can get it. We also are making sure to review our standards and try to think about, are the things we said were essential, are those actually our essential standards? Is that really what it needs to be? Are we focusing in the right place, or do we need to look to a different standard to focus on? And then again, I keep saying, well, that one's in a second. Include structured student talk routines. We want to make sure we have our arts-based skills and strategies and make sure that they're very strong in our math classes as well, because we don't want to have all these arts integrated classes and then math, because that sometimes happens. Math is a little more difficult to integrate with the arts, but we can absolutely do that. And then also make sure that we have those purposeful language frames for all of our students. And then in general, moving from a my student frame of mind to an our student frame of mind. That's something that I see that's so successful with 4th grade, They don't see that, oh, that's my student, that's my homeroom kid. Every single teacher in that grade level, every single kid, they all take full responsibility for and ownership of, and that's what helps those kids really excel because they have so many people in their corner working for them. And so we're working on that for our entire school. So do y'all have any questions about anything?
Is there an example of how you integrate the artful learning with math? Like what would be a good example?
So one of the arts-based skills and strategies is called Zip Zap Zoom, and I can't do it with this. So one of them is that it's kind of like a theater, kind of thinking on your feet kind of thing, and so you zip things to somebody, and it's kind of, so we'll do that with, you might do it, say, we're going to say nouns, and so I'll say a noun, I'll send it to you, you send it to somebody else. So we can do that with math by counting, in kindergarten, counting by ones. I'll say one and I'll send it to you, you say two, send it to somebody else, and we just kind of keep going. And that takes a lot of concentration. Then when you get into upper grades, you start counting by twos and fives and tens and threes and start doing all sorts of different pieces with it. Another one would be grid drawing. So where we take a large piece of art, split it into grids, and then each kid gets a little tiny piece and they have to reproduce it larger. And so we can talk about ratios, we can talk about proportions, we can even talk a little bit about area as we're also talking about the arts, about shading and value and texture and all these different pieces that we can kind of put together. Is that?
Yeah.
And then the other big way that I think we really integrate math and the artful learning framework is our units might be, they're concept based. So the concept might be structure, it might be pattern, it might be relationship. And in every content area, we connect that to our standards. So pattern, I mean, that's everywhere. That's in language arts, that's in social studies and history, and it's absolutely in math too. So we make sure in math that we're pulling in that concept. And so it's staying connected to everything that we're doing.
I could see it easily with like geometry.
Yes, geometry is usually the one, and data. Data is usually one that we can kind of do some arts things with as well. But I think we can get into everything. Do you have any other questions? Thank you.
It's up to you, I think.
The tsunami's over.
Okay, I feel like I skimmed over it earlier. Adrian, on the July financials, did you have anything that you saw that you feel like we should discuss?
No. We probably need to let Dr. Roberts just talk about the budget. Again, like we've talked about before, but for our new people,
Budget is the budget. We only have, per student funding. I will let her talk a little bit about what we were waiting on, which is information on the federal funding. So like we've discussed before, charters get different levels of funding, which means we have inequitable funding in charter schools in Arkansas. We get per student funding with no tax revenue. So what we have to do in our budget is manage the largest percentage of our budget, almost 80% is our staffing. And the other chunk of our budget, for the most part, is our facilities. And then we piece in places in between. The funding mechanism of the state has increased. So the per student funding has increased by about $200+ per student. That all those things help. Increased enrollment helps. Our funding structure is built on last year's student population. So we were at 933, give or take, students last year. That's exactly what we're funded on for this year. So even though we have more students this year, we're still funded on last year's model, and that's just the way it works in this state. So we started our budget process. We started in January when we began thinking about staffing. And so we literally place what we perceive to be what we'll get funded on for the following year. We already know that's where our staffing limitations are, and we navigate that. So we're really lean. We've really evaluated any excess expenditures. We looked at how we can renegotiate contracts with our vendor services
how we try to do preventative maintenance versus big repairs. We've just really been navigating. It's a true testament. It's a team effort. It's not easy to create a budget that's so tight like this, but it's definitely not easy to work within a budget that's tight. And the staff does that very well. And it's not easy at times. So a lot of that is just a general understanding that we want to be successful. And in my role, I also really look through grants, and we have lots of opportunities through our charter growth fund funding that we're getting and all the opportunities that exist within that. So we're really taking advantage of things. So all of that story is to say is our budget is probably one of the easiest budgets to look at versus a big district where they get rolling in tax revenue. So it's pretty simple in the fact that we have identified where we need to spend money, where we have to spend money, and then spaces in between we navigate. Some of the things that we're looking at sort of holistically is we're working with an individual, her name is Lindsay Phillips, and she is with the Charter Seed Growth Fund. We got a grant from them to pay for her services, and she's with us for about 6 months, and she's pulling together long-term forecasts. And she's got a beautiful design on a spreadsheet that it changes, numbers change all the time. And so the calculations of 10 more students here or 10 less students here and what that looks like to our bottom number, it's the ability to navigate some of our loan payments on facilities and what that would do to our bottom line across year after year. And so we're taking her work to some of our bigger funders and having conversations about how do we renegotiate some of our larger debt services and how do we manage that. But we've had this conversation for as long as I've been here. This, this building, as beautiful it is what we're trying to navigate payment for. So our budget is kind of clear. We did not receive major cuts like we were afraid of. We were fearful of our Title IV, we were fearful of our Title IIA. We were fearful of not getting the allocations from the state like we had in the years past. Those have come through. We're navigating our Title I, which is our ELA, our SPED budget, our intense student services budget really carefully. Dr. Langley's helping us navigate that and really pay careful attention and not purchase things we don't need and really be intentional about that.
The Fund 6, will you scroll back up for a second? The Fund 6 is what she's talking about, the federal money.
So part of the navigating,
Down a little bit.
part of navigating charter school funding is there are certain funds that are restricted and certain funds that are unrestricted. And we want to make sure that we're pulling and spending in places that we can and placing staffing salaries in areas that we can to open up our more revenue for our operating budget. So it's a constant shift around. But again, writing grants, taking advantage of all the opportunities for services that are provided by the department that we can receive free of charge. I mean, all those things are helping us advance through this shift. We're seeing a great return on our marketing investment, and that funding has come through the Charter Seed Growth Fund. And so our increase in recruitment, our uptick in student interest and parent interest is because a couple of things. It's because we've increased our marketing. We have longevity and consistency in our administrators. We've got a path forward that we're staying true to, and we're not making changes that eventually cost us in the long run. So we're seeing trends of students rolling from elementary to high school. We'll continue to focus that effort. So we're making progress. It's just, it's a navigation game, and we deal with it daily. Susan manages our purchase orders, and they're scrutinized about 3 layers deep. And they finally come to me, and I'm asking all kinds of questions. So we're just trying to make sure our teachers have what they need, but also that we're able to have the carryover we need at the end of the year. It's a long answer to that.
Quick question.
Questions?
Anybody? Okay, so do you just need signatures from us on the budget, or you need to vote as well?
You need to approve it, approve the budget,
A move to approve
Move
the
it.
budget as presented.
and then you'll sign it and I'll second.
In a second. All in- Adrian. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I had one thing on my mind, earlier, listening to the data. Do we have a plan to celebrate AP scores now that we have those for last year? And not just celebrate them, but use them on our website, marketing needs, et cetera? Have we thought about that?
We've got AP scores and we've got the AP scores and Miss Renee Ferris, because we send them money. If a student gets a 3, they get $50. If they get a 4, it's 75. If they get a 5, it's 100. So Renee already has that, has been started working on that. As far as a school celebration, I will defer over here. We usually do something of that nature. I'm not sure about posting them to the website. That we'd have to get permission from each of the families.
Sure, just in a sense, just
I
use.
literally, if Jamie looks in her inbox, just sent an email to her about AP scores for the next board meeting. I don't know if we can pull off the full celebration for the September, but for sure by October if we meet.
Okay. I feel like celebration even internally, for sure, the other kiddos, shoot for that same goal. They just saw this celebration. Hey, I want to be part of that. I'm gonna nail this AP test this year. So anyway, just on my heart, say something about it.
Yeah, and so in her email, it's about AP, ACT, and the concurrent credit as well, just a full, I want to look at a 3-year trend and then celebrate those top kids.
Awesome.
That's the goal.
Thank you.
It's on my mind too.
I'll hold it up for you.
Jamie has some stats on, that I think you guys would find interesting, on the number of courses that were taken, the teachers that had the biggest success. We're really proud of our AP scores, and really, we're grateful the state allows this funding. So the state provides the funding for AP awards, and that's a really great benefit for kids.
So last year, we had a total of 125 total exams taken. Not necessarily 125 students, because many students took multiple exams. Our average score was just a hair below a 3, but most of our classes, like the different courses, most of them had a 100% success rate of 3 or higher. If you're not familiar with AP, they get a score based on a 1 to 5 scale. It is not pass or fail. Nobody fails the AP exam, and your AP score does not affect your school grade. So we don't even get those until early July. But a 3 is generally considered college ready. So if you get a 3, most colleges will accept that as you would have been successful in a college course, probably at a B or so level. And then 4s and 5s increase from there. 5s are everybody wants to shoot for a 5. And we had several students with 5s, especially in our arts courses, AP Studio Art, and then we're adding AP 3D Art. I will tell you, AP is declining as concurrent credit is going up. That's not just us, that's everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised to see it go away long term. Concurrent credit is paid for by the state for most students, and then APs still have a cost. So the state does pay for the AP test for us in Arkansas, but it's not a guaranteed college credit like a concurrent credit course.
Quick interruption, Jamie. You may not be aware that the state just changed the law also so that concurrent credit classes are weighted. So now they'll be weighted just like AP scores, or AP classes. So you get the weighted credit and you get the guarantee. If you're not a great test taker, you get the guaranteed grade. If you can make a C or better, you get the college credit with the weighted grade. So, and then the next step is that you get that credit, that 1 credit in 1 semester instead of a full year. I mean, there are lots of advantages to that. And with the state, I feel like they're gonna push that out more and more. I like a mix myself for kids between AP and concurrent. I like them to take at least a couple of AP classes because it is a different experience than a concurrent credit class, but it's definitely something that I feel like we're gonna see shift a lot coming up in the future. So, and thankfully, I feel like we're ahead of that curve here with a number both of AP and concurrent, and our kids really diving into the concurrent credit classes. So,
Especially because we have 2 teachers, I think there's 2, there may be more, teachers on our campus that are teaching concurrent credit live in the classroom, so it's not digital, and then that can increase, but it's
we have Comp 1 and biology this year, so we're just a little bit in biology. I think we have 6 kids in there. And then I hope to run college algebra next year.
Thank you, guys. Do we have any reason to take this vote? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.